First, though, it looks as though talks are ending early in Brussels tonight. EU members have been deciding on who's to take up two key posts created by the Lisbon Treaty. The role of President and Foreign Minister have been up for grabs. Now, several European diplomats, in fact, the majority of EU leaders, say that they back the Belgian Prime Minister, Herman Van Rompuy, for President, and the British EU Trade Minister, Catherine Ashton, for Foreign Affairs Chief. So let's get the details now with France 24's C.Robeet, who joins me from Brussels. It looks like you'll be getting an early night after all, Christophe.
Yes, Laura, what a surprise. We thought that we would be here for the rest of the night and potentially for the whole weekend. Now, remember those two names. If they are confirmed, Herman Van Rompuy, the first permanent president of the European Council, the current Prime Minister of Belgium, a politician described as discreet but as a tough negotiator. Certainly that's what they will need here in Brussels to convince that Europe and the EU can speak with one voice and have more clout on the global scene. Catherine Ashton, that's a big surprise. This is a last-minute candidate put forward by Great Britain. I remind you that Tony Blair had long been a candidate of Westminster. It looked though like Tony Blair did not have enough support here in Brussels. Now, Britain, in order to balance potential president, once again, we need to wait for a confirmation, but to balance out Herman Van Rompuy, described as federalist close to France and Germany, things that very often worry Britain. Well, it looks like Britain indeed got the top job of foreign minister. Catherine Ashford, she's the current UK-British Trade Commissioner. Relatively unknown, relatively low-key, it has to be said, though she's been described as well as a tough negotiator here in Brussels. It looks indeed like there's been a consensus in this very difficult equation. We were talking about it earlier, Laura, as always here in Brussels. It's a matter of trying to convince a majority of EU leaders. There are 27 leaders here in Europe with diverging and different interests and priorities. We know that Britain wanted to make sure that they had something to say. Now, if they've got Catherine Ashton, they will count on her for their view to be put forward here in Brussels. Belgium, the current Prime Minister of Belgium, was the candidate we know of both France and Germany. So if the press conference confirms this, we've got the ticket, we've got the winning ticket, a Belgian Prime Minister and a UK Trade Commissioner.
Now, about these two roles, how much power do they carry on the global stage? And what do these two candidates have to recommend them to the posts?
That's the big question tonight. These two posts were created by the Lisbon Treaty. The problem is that the Lisbon Treaty is not very clear on what these two persons are going to do. There's been a very long debate here in Brussels. What do you expect from the president? Do you want somebody who is charismatic, who can talk on an equal level with the likes of President Obama or Medvedev of Russia? Or on the contrary, do you want an enabling chairman, somebody who will work internally here in the Council and prepare the summit? Now, Mr. Van Rompuy has been described as somebody who is still lacking charisma, is not very well known, and the fear will be that he will rather be an enabling chairman than a very strong president. However, the Belgians have been telling us, don't misread the man. You don't know him very well. You have to see he will be up for the task. He won't be merely a puppet from the big EU states. He will find his role on the European scene. Now, the EU foreign minister has got a more active role. He's he needs to be the top diplomatic envoy of the EU. Now, the fear is that Mrs. Ashford doesn't have a lot of experience when it comes for Mrs. Ashton doesn't have a lot of experience when it comes to foreign policy, and the fear is that she will need to learn on the ground.
All right, C.Robeet in Brussels. Many thanks indeed for joining us with the latest news there. So it's not 100% confirmed, but it's looking very likely indeed that the Belgian Prime Minister Herman Van Rompuy will become the new EU President, and Catherine Ashton, the British EU Trade Commissioner,